küresel hedefleri anlatıyor.
Dünya liderleri 15 yıl içinde 3 önemli işi başarmak için bu 17 hedefi seçtiler. Açlığa son, sağlıklı bireyler...
Abi kes, önünü kapattın.
Abi ne fark eder? Dünya liderleri 15 hedefi belirlemek için değişik yöntemler izlediler. Baştan mı gireyim ya? Hadi bir daha. 15 yıl önce dünya liderleri bir araya gelip 3 hedef belirlediler. Sonra bunun az olduğuna karar verip 17'ye çıkarttılar. Sonra 17 ile 3'ü toplayıp 20 çıktı. Allah. Bu 17 hedefin içinde yoksulluğa son, açlığa son. Mesela turuncular sanayi, mesela cinsiyet eşitliğini sanayi, yani küresel hedeflere yaparken şaka bir yana, ben Mert Fırat. UNDP iyi niyet elçisiyim. En büyük amacımız 2030'a kadar bu 17 hedefi tüm dünyaya anlatmak. Sizlerin de yardımına ihtiyacımız var.
Hello, Grenadian, good morning everybody, and welcome to day 2 of the conference. Now, for those who weren't here, weren't here yesterday, day 1, my name is Ramos. I am a news anchor at TRT World, Turkey's relatively new international news channel. And I'm wearing red, just very quickly, for those of you that I met yesterday in the cocktail and during the breaks who were laughing at my football team, Real Madrid, and they beat Juventus 3-0 in Italy yesterday. So I thought I'd make a point by wearing the Spanish flag and of course the Turkish flag in person. So, back to this conference, Istanbul Development Dialogues. Now this is the fourth edition of this conference, and this year the focus is very much on partnerships, because sustainable development is not a solo job, as we mentioned yesterday, and so much has been done and great topics were discussed yesterday, and I think a lot of us got a lot out of yesterday's forum. But today we move onto the other 4 Ps: peace, planet, prosperity, and people, which are very much at the heart of the 2030 agenda. Now, this forum is very much a dialogue, a constant dialogue here in person in the room and online. And I just want to thank you, and on behalf of the organizers, for the amazing contribution online, on Twitter, using this fantastic hashtag. I think when I move, you can't hear me. IDD2018. Please keep the conversation going on Twitter and here in person. It's been excellent. Now, I would like to ask for something, for you not to leave early. I know it's day 2, it's very sunny in Istanbul, but do not leave early. Why? Because at 3 p.m. we have an amazing session called Voices of the People, and you will not want to miss this. We're going to be hearing from an incredible range of voices. Yesterday's inspiring activist Timur, also a Syrian refugee working in a women's center, and there'll be a very, very remarkable photo montage showing the real challenges facing sustainable development. So do not leave early, okay? And now we have a very special session. It's time to introduce the Partners Forum. And this is a way to get as many voices as possible into the dialogue on sustainable development. And it reflects an open mic approach. And this will be led by Ben Slay, UNDP Senior Advisor. So I now hand the floor and this session to him. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and dear colleagues. These are the Istanbul Development Dialogues, and we're very serious about the idea of a dialogue being space for many people to participate. And one thing we've always had in these 4 years of the dialogues is one session that's essentially, as Maria said, an open mic, a chance for UNDP's partners, whether these be from other UN agencies, whether these be from governments, whether these be from civil society, private sector, others, a chance to address the meeting if they have not yet done so. Now, this year we had so many more participants in the IDDs than in previous years. We've therefore had so many more people who wish to address the meeting during Partners Forum. And in order to avoid a situation having one person followed by another, and then another, and then another simply come up to the podium, and in order to have a bit more moderated discussion, building on the format that we used yesterday, we've actually broken the session down into 3 different components or subsessions. We have one subsession that will be essentially a moderated panel of government colleagues representing countries that have not yet had a chance to speak, as well as representatives of United Nations agencies. Then we'll have a second subsession, session B, that will be partners from civil society and intergovernmental agencies. And then finally we'll conclude with a genuine open mic. We have 3 people and 3 organizations signed up for that. And that's essentially how our partners will be able to take good use of this forum to present what they are doing to help achieve sustainable development in this region as well. So that having been said, each of the participants has been asked to be very brief, to speak for no more than 3 to 5 minutes, so that we do have time for moderated discussion. And I'll be keeping time, and if you are speaking and I send you a sign or have to cut in to your presentation, please forgive me, but we have a lot of other partners who want me to be sure we keep to the schedule. So that's also something to keep in mind. So without further ado, let me introduce our participants in Session A of the Partners Forum, which is the United Nations and government partners speaking about what their organizations are doing to achieve sustainable development and sustainable development goals. Let me introduce first Ms. Afshan Khan, Regional Director for Europe and Central Asia from the United Nations Children's Fund. If you could please come up, Afshan. Thank you very much. We also have Ms. Yuriko Shoji, Deputy Regional Representative for Europe and Central Asia from the Food and Agriculture Organization. Yuriko, if you're here, please join us. Mr. Danijel Nikolic, the Chief of Staff from the Government Secretariat of the Republic of Serbia. We're also very pleased to have him. Thank you very much. We also have Mr. Orazmuhammet Ashirov, the Acting Director of the Institute of Strategic and Sustainable Development from Turkmenistan. Господин Ashirov, приглашаем. Спасибо. We have Ms. Amra Fetahovic, the advisor from the Economic Planning Directorate of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Molim Lepo. Please, Ms. Fetahovic. We have Mr. Dmitry Frischin, the manager from the United Nations Volunteers Sub-Regional Office for Europe and CIS here in Istanbul. And last but certainly not least in the session, we have Ms. Marta Diavolova, the Regional Advisor for Strategic Partnerships of the United Nations Population Fund, also here in Istanbul. So I'd like to invite all of you to take your seats, and I'm going to begin by asking Ms. Khan to briefly, in 3 to 5 minutes, no more, present what UNICEF is doing in this region to promote the Sustainable Development Goals achievement, and then we'll go to other speakers and have some moderated discussion. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. I'm very pleased to be here as part of the partnership discussion. I think yesterday's session was an extraordinary kind of overview of some of the key issues that people are facing in the region. And I think the one thing that struck me the most was to recognize that children in this region have the most to gain from our efforts. Given the 2030 agenda, many of the children today will be those adults that will live that agenda. And secondly, they'll have the most to lose if we don't seize this opportunity and build clearly and collectively around some commitments. So there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on that came up. One was the leave no one behind commitment of the SDG outcome document and the Agenda 2030, because that really compels us to hone in on children and families who are the most vulnerable, the most disadvantaged, and the most marginalized, so that their rights and needs are placed squarely at the core of development planning. This region still has a lot to address, what I would call legacy issues. 20 million children in our region currently live below national poverty rates, and these rates are higher for children than they are for adults. Neonatal mortality rates are worryingly high in Central Asia, and more than in other parts of the region. And what I find most astounding is almost 4.5 million children are missing out on getting an education. So what does that bode for some of the employment and economic goals that we've set forward? And adolescent school net attendance is significantly lower for children hailing from the Roma community compared to other children. And we have 1 million children living in residential care. So then what do we do about that together as part of a partnership? The first is to step up in a big way to tackle these inequalities head on. And the interconnectivity of the SDGs and the need for integrated planning means we need to strengthen and expand the partnerships to deliver results across the multiple sectors for every child. Reaching the most marginalized children will require an enormous coordinated effort from all of us. And UNICEF is pleased to be part of this stakeholder, both of the UN family, but very much with the private sector and governments as well. So I'll touch on 4 key elements for building momentum around the SDGs. First is invest. And I think we recognize the importance of investing in all children, especially in the early years and the second decade of life, as a foundation for leading to all the SDGs. And that means investing in domestic and innovative financing and improved tracking of spending and budget allocations that go towards the benefit of children. We had a lot of discussion yesterday on the millions to trillions, but I think really here the key is looking at this social spend as an investment and a longer-term guarantee for success and the economic growth and prosperity needed. The second is to promote the capacities of children and young people to be involved as agents of change. And here we've used new technology in this region. Ukraine is a very good example, where we have more than 30,000 EU reporters active every day on giving their own feedback on government policies, on issues, and what needs to work to change to create better results for kids. Right now, we've got 5 million EU reporters in over 41 countries, and it's been recognized by the United Nations Volunteer Program for its impact to enable people to engage and make a difference in their communities. The second area is to really focus, third area, on innovation. And here we've been working on evaluating and emerging trending technologies to determine how we can work with the private sector to do better business while improving essential services for children. So we've just completed a study looking at the 6 big technology investments that have more than $100 billion market opportunities, as well as the potential to improve children's lives and make quantifiable progress towards the SDGs. So that's a mix of online education with in-person mentoring experience. We can reach millions of people, providing them the pathways to employment if we mobilize big business, local tech systems, and government and development. And then the last thing I will say is the opportunity to innovate, identify, and scale solutions to expand application to several countries on engaging with young people. We have a homegrown program started in Kosovo called Upshift, was supported by ING to support 21st century skills for young people. That's now gone from up as far as Myanmar with more than 20,000 young people scaling up in part of this programming. So for me, investment, innovation, and really looking at participation and engagement are the three key things I would like us to work together on to bring this next generation into the future economies of the 2030 agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Afshan. Very nice, short, succinct presentation, reminding us of many important things, including the importance of children as our future, and also for pointing out, reminding us that sometimes the best ideas don't take a lot of money to implement that can make a difference in people's lives. Thank you once again. Yuriko, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I am very pleased to be a part of this panel on partnership. And first of all, I would like to congratulate the colleagues at UNDP and the organizers, the hosts, for a wonderful event with many stimulating discussion. I would like to speak a little bit about what Food and Agriculture Organization is working on, and then perhaps come back to the three big questions a little bit in the time given. So Europe and Central Asia region has made significant progress towards eradication of food insecurity. However, we still have in this region what is called the triple burden of malnutrition. So especially in transition economies, you have a situation where you have undernutrition, micronutrient deficiency, and overnutrition, obesity at the same time. So we are working with our partner World Health Organization in advocacy campaigns and putting in place the policies that would address the issues of correct nutrition. Here in Turkey, we are working on a specific campaign on food loss and waste, together with the Grain Board of Turkey. And soon we will be starting discussions with Metro, the supermarket chain, the wholesalers, which is already working on many corporate social responsibility issues, sustainable sourcing of the products, and so on. In terms of partnership, FAO is now implementing the second phase of partnership program with Turkey, implementing projects in capacity building and also the use of Turkish expertise in the countries of Central Asia. And we currently have two programs, one in agriculture, one in forestry. In the forestry program, we are also going to implement a program of financing of $3 million into a larger program called the Great Green Wall of Sahel and Sahara, a program which is being implemented by FAO and the African Union. And the Turkish component of this project is very appropriately called Bridges. So we are very proud of this activity. In terms of the three big questions of yesterday, I would like to come back to the issue of withdrawal of subsidies, which we all very much agree to. However, I want to bring in one example in Asia where FAO has been working with farmers to reduce the use of pesticides for a long time with training programs. But it was not until under the leadership of Mr. Manmohan Singh in India, who was finance minister at that time, some tariffs were imposed on import of chemicals and pesticides, that we have really seen the reduction in the use of pesticides. So we have to make sure that the incentives, in this case it's a negative incentive, works. However, we would also like to say that price is not only monetary. There are trade-offs in terms of stability. If such, for example, extractive industries are bringing in the much-needed resources to the country, we would like to make sure that these resources are invested in for example, the rural infrastructure, the training programs, in supporting the communities in the rural areas. In terms of governance, I would like to zoom in into a community at the edge of what we call the cold winter deserts in Central Asia, where we were told one year that the heating has been turned off prematurely in the month of March, I believe. So that made the people cut down on the scarce resources because it's a desert, but it has many vegetation still. And livelihoods. So people are cutting down on the shrubs, then migrating to other countries for work. And the area is next to UNESCO heritage site, but tourism is limited to 4 months a year because of the cold winters and harsh summers. And this was having an impact on degradation of land and depopulation and loss of livelihood in this region. So we would like to say that policies need to be smart and specific, and with all of our voices going in the same direction, I hope that there would be practical policies which can be implemented. Just briefly on the technology, of course the innovation goes on. We cannot stop the innovation, but we would like to make sure that the innovation and technology does not divide. We have studies that the ICT development, IT technology is creating a division between men and women, especially at the low end of the users, who would need the technology for rural financing, banking, alerts about climatic conditions, market situations. So we have to make sure that we leave no one behind there as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shoji, for coming back, among other things, to the big themes of getting prices right, getting governance right, and getting technology right. We'll come back to this later in this session for the moderated discussion. Thank you also for reminding us that prices are also incomes for people, and when agricultural prices, farm prices are in some sense too low, this is a cause of poverty and underdevelopment in rural areas. And this is an issue in so many countries of this region where in cities, especially in the capital cities, there's lots of money and lots of prosperity and lots of progress, but then you go to the countryside and you just don't see that. And there's a tremendous need for investment, not only in rural infrastructure in so many places, but also in the agricultural technologies, the water management technologies. Many of these are, of course, reflected in the Sustainable Development Goals, relevant indicators, and I think many governments are relying on support from FAO precisely in these areas. So these are extremely important points. Thank you once again for bringing them to our attention. I would like to now pass the floor to Mr. Danijel Nikolic, Chief of Staff from the Government of Serbia. Please.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have been asked to share with you the Serbian success story, and I believe it's hard to share any story in 3 to 5 minutes, so I will really give my best that this speech have some point. So what is the Serbian success story? I believe that the key word in Serbian success story is the word synergy. Yesterday, all day long, I was looking at this billboard, and I found this billboard as really, really interesting, and it really inspired me. You have pretty much everything on it. It's, if you look at the center, you will see the old stairs as a piece of history, and you can see that the time did something to them. Then you have, for instance, the woods, the green, and so many different levels of the message which they bring, like environmental protection, green energy, long-term growth, but sustainable and constant. And the most impressive part is the motorways. And when you see the motorways, again, you have a clear picture of connection, exchange of people, ideas, knowledge, economy, infrastructure, everything what is the base corner of any growth. But as the day was going on, and I just keep eye on this billboard, and then in one moment I got scared. If you take a good look, you will see that there is no actually cross roads. These roads are just going one over above, and they are not crossing. There is no exchange between them. So I believe that that's the biggest problem in the most of the world. The governments all around the world, they're really trying best with new policies, with new ideas, with new rules, new procedures to achieve SDGs. But most of the time, they're not, even in one country, you cannot find a way where they will cross or where they will fit one into each other and to continue to go straight. So it's pretty much the same in my country, and we are still struggling and fighting to resolve this and to win in this bad story. But how we, from economy which had a negative growth for so many years, move to the success story? We had a problem with, for example, with working in a gray zone. And we knew that we need to decrease our taxes, our contributions for social security, but how to do that when your bag is empty? You don't have fiscal space. So we were struggling with a high public debt, which was continually growing, and low public income. Well, the first measure was really hard and painful. It was savings. Savings on the salaries in the public sector and savings on the pensions. And if you ask me, for me personally it was painful. I'm the civil servant who had salary decreased. But when you start to see the benefits around you, because for instance, Serbia had built more motorways from 2012 to these days than it was built after Second World War to 1990s. So with this money which we saved, we invest that in big infrastructural projects. And when your building industry start to work, the economy start to breathe. Then we find some money for different way of sensitives for new employment. We became the leader in attracting of the direct investments, foreign and domestic ones. And our unemployment rate, which was in 2012 23.9%, we end up 2017 with 14.4%. So unemployment went down for almost 10%, which is amazing result if you see how shortly it happened. Serbia is one of the few European countries which, after a few years of budget deficit and minus in the public finances, second year in a row we have a budget surplus. And I don't want to make this all like that Serbia is Switzerland. No, we are not Switzerland. We are far away from Switzerland. We need to work a lot. We need to work more. But just to be back on focus and to conclude, to give you an example, what I'm actually trying to say is the good example on this is World Bank Doing Business list. On 2015, Serbia was on 91st place, and we was not happy. Serbian government created a working group with Deputy Prime Minister as a chairperson, all line ministries in charge for different fields, and high professionals was in that working group, with one goal, to put Serbia upper on this list. Working really hard, we marked and we just locate all leak points in the system, and we create an action plan with the program for improving of Serbia on the list with action plan. It was not just a paper, one more paper. We actually did it. We stick to our dream. And already on 2016, so we was on 91st on 2015. 2016 we was on 59th place. 2017 we are on 47. And why I'm giving you this example? It's pretty much like SDGs. If you know about World Bank doing business list, they give you like points for instance, dealing with construction permits, getting electricity, registering property, getting credit, etc., etc., paying the taxes, how easy it's to pay taxes and stuff like that. So they put all together, and then you have a final mark, and that puts you on the list on some position. While working all together with resources which we have.
Mr. Nikolic, excuse me, can I ask you to conclude?
Yes.
I apologize. Thank you very much.
So just using resources which we had at the moment, we just collect all of them, working with our own force, and we stick to our dream, the dream which we was mentioning yesterday. If we stick to the dream with resources which we have, the success is possible. We are not in top 20 in the first year, but we hope that in next year or year after that, we will be in top 20 countries. So just change from these motorways, when you zoom out, to find solution how to connect these roads, or maybe even better to present this as a river with confluence one to each other, and to make one force, together force with resources which we have to achieve the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Nikolic. I very much like your point about all of these roads. It's great, but if we don't have the connections between the roads, we're not really taking advantage of the possibilities. That's true not only for infrastructure, but for development in general. In fact, sustainable development and the SDGs, they're all about making these connections, integrated approaches that reduce poverty and increase economic growth, while at the same time investing in natural capital rather than depleting it, and at the same time reaching out to people who otherwise might be excluded from the prosperity. And this oftentimes involves, as you pointed out, whole of government approaches, different ministries working together, and not just the government itself, but also with civil society and private sector partners as well. So I think this is a very powerful metaphor. And next year, if we use a similar logo or motif, we'll definitely have the interchanges in the roads, with perhaps some nice restaurants as well on the side. And finally, I would like to commend you also for reminding us of the importance of something else we talked about yesterday, dreams. You know, the SDGs and sustainable development may be most important as goals, as aspirations that we are striving to achieve, even if we don't necessarily achieve every single target, every single indicator in every single country. If we make progress and make people's lives better and have a more sustainable planet, that's what really we're all interested in. So, hvala puno. Thank you very much. Okay, I would, before we go to the next speakers, I'd like to ask each of our three panelists to briefly respond to the following question that I would pose. And by the three, I mean the three who have already spoken. What is the one technological innovation that you have seen in your work that could really make a difference, or has already really made a difference, that you would like to call the forum's attention to? Mr. Nikolic, could I ask you to start first in this?
Definitely what I could see as somebody who is working in the government, and I will give you an example of one system which helps business and the private sector. First of all, we introduce a one-stop shop for if you want to register a business. So you just online do it with our national agency, National Register, and National Register will just pass this information to all necessary institutions, and in less than 24 hours you will receive your official registration confirmation, and you will be able to start a business. We try to do something the same for the general population, not just for business. And then before, when mom brings the baby to this world, mom and dad, before, by the Serbian laws, should go together, and she just got the baby, but she needs to go together with her husband to register it in 3 different institutions, the baby. So we say, this is completely wrong. And UNDP project, actually, which was in the Prime Minister's office and the Secretariat General, the first project was, we call it e-baby. It's not actually e-baby. It doesn't mean that you can birth baby through the internet, but when you're in a baby birth hospital, second day after a baby is on the world, dad is come to the hospital, and then mom and dad just going with the nurse to the questionnaire, and the system automatically do everything. So in the 10 days from that day, you will get birth certificate, citizenship, address approval. So all documents needed will come to your home address. So this is something what business and general population, innovation.
Thank you. That's a wonderful example. And I think if we have e-baby, that's a signal that the next person who should speak really would be UNICEF to keep with this same motif. So please, Afshan, the floor is yours. What's the one signal innovation you would call our attention?
Thanks. I'm glad the birth registration issue was raised because it's a very important one. But the second one that I think is key, and perhaps Turkey as well, as a country hosting millions of refugees, would recognize as being extremely important, is the opportunity for education and online learning. We recognize that many children, as a result of conflict, have missed out on schooling. For that generation to still contribute actively to economies, I think we've now been working and developing with a number of partners online learning and education systems that do a couple of things. One, for children on the move, allows them to continue to learn. Secondly, links both the learning opportunities in mother tongue to what Turkey has done, which is astounding, enrolled so many children in school. That opportunity is not available in many European countries at the same pace. So what we've tried to do is really make opportunities for online learning for children, but linking that with some mentoring and structured system. And then the third thing is connecting for older kids those learning opportunities, and we've really started it in Indonesia as an example, with the business sector to create not just learning, but also employment opportunities. So yesterday we spoke a lot about what are the skill sets for the next generation. And those skill sets, it allows us to connect both online learning and mentoring with the business sector so that there's a link between the learning and then the demand for skills by business. So I think this is an opportunity that we're seeing particularly grow exponentially in Asia. I think the question is, how now do we take some of that and bring it also to the context we're working in, recognizing both that the quality of education needs to improve significantly, but also the numbers of kids enrolled in education and connected to employment opportunities. There's huge potential pathways there.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Shoji, FAO has been associated with so many of the technological innovations in rural development, be it the Green Revolution, be it drip irrigation in agriculture. What sorts of technological developments do you see coming in the future that can help us to sustainably feed a growing planet?
Thank you very much. Starting from the bottom-up approach, I would like to mention that in this region in particular, we have been promoting conservation agriculture, climate-smart agriculture, which has also been tested very much in Turkey. And this is effective under the arid climate to increase productivity and also to manage natural resources, and also connected to the organic agriculture, where we are hoping to go up the value chain, increase the income of the rural populations, also improve the market access together with training programs, capacity development in WTO accession. they are talking about technology. There have been e-learning courses which have been implemented quite extensively in this region. And we are promoting the agri-food trade, increasing the market value, as well as promoting agribusiness and trade in this region, which is also under various regional integration bodies and mechanisms with the complexities that we have spoke about yesterday. So it's an area with a potential of growth. We are very excited to be working on that. And we would also welcome your suggestions and recommendations on this. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So this is, I think, a very good start to the Partners Forum in this first session. Let us now continue to the other speakers. Мне теперь предоставляется большая честь слово передать господину Оразмухаммету Аширову, выполняющему обязанности директора Института стратегического и устойчивого развития Республики Туркменистана. Пожалуйста, вам слово. Если вы можете ограничить свое выступление до 3-5 минут, мы были бы очень благодарны. Спасибо.
Спасибо большое. Уважаемые дамы и господа, прежде всего хочу...
Поближе к микрофону, если можно.
Уважаемые дамы и господа, прежде всего хочу приветствовать всех участников этого форума. Желаю успехов в работе форума. Поблагодарить за приглашение, гостеприимство и возможность выступить на этом форуме. Я бы хотел представить, как мы построили партнерство для реализации целей устойчивого развития в Туркменистане. Туркменистан активно включился в глобальный процесс определения всеобщей программы устойчивого развития на период после 2015 года. На саммите в сентябре 2015 года правительство Туркменистана выразило свою полную поддержку повестки дня в области устойчивого развития до 2030 года. И тем самым был дан старт процессу национализации СУР в Туркменистане. При содействии ООН в 2016 году были проведены консультации с участием представителей министерств, ведомств, общественных организаций, академических кругов по выявлению тех целей, задач и индикаторов СУР глобальной программы устойчивого развития, которые соответствуют национальным приоритетам Туркменистана. Рассмотрев рекомендации в сентябре 2016 года, правительство утвердило национальный перечень целей устойчивого развития. В прошлом году принята программа президента Туркменистана по социально-экономическому развитию страны на 18-24 годы, которая содержит специальный раздел, посвященный имплементации СУР в стране. Ведется работа по включению задач и показателей СУР отдельной отраслевой программы Туркменистана. Основная часть задач СУР отражены в национальных государственных отраслевых программ страны. В целях практической реализации принятых целей устойчивого развития и представления отчетности о прогрессе реализации в ноябре прошлого года президент Туркменистана принял постановление, в котором определены функции и обязательства каждого из их участвующих министерств и ведомств, в том числе Министерства финансов и экономики, Государственный комитет по статистике, отраслевых министерств и ведомств. Была также создана рабочая группа, в состав которой входят заместители 57 министерств и ведомств Туркменистана, общественных организаций, а также омбудсмен. Одновременно Министерство финансов и экономики Туркменистана было назначено в качестве ответственного органа за процесс мониторинга достигнутого прогресса в реализации СУР Туркменистана. Институт стратегического устойчивого развития выполняет секретариат данной рабочей группы. Таким образом, в стране обеспечивается многостороннее партнерство для достижения целей устойчивого развития. В ответ на призыв 71-й сессии Генеральной Ассамблеи ООН о необходимости национальных усилий по информированию молодежи о важности целей устойчивого развития, правительство Туркменистана выступило с инициативой о создании специализированного учебного методического центра по СУР, который будет разрабатывать учебные программы, методические справочные материалы для средних школ, профессионально-технических высших учебных заведений. В настоящее время при поддержке агентства ООН проводится работа по развитию данного центра. В текущем году правительству Туркменистана были получены рекомендации миссии ООН высокого уровня по внедрению, ускорению и оказанию поддержки в области практической реализации СУРМАПС. В этой связи проводится тесное сотрудничество с агентствами ООН Туркменистана для их имплементации. Кроме того, правительство Туркменистана в настоящий момент изучает возможность предоставления отчета о достигнутом прогрессе по осуществлению СУР на политическом форуме высокого уровня в городе Нью-Йорке. Полагаемся на партнерство с ООН в техническом содействии в области мониторинга отчетности целей устойчивого развития Туркменистана. Спасибо за внимание. Желаю всем участникам форума успехов в осуществлении целей устойчивого развития. Спасибо.
Большое спасибо за очень содержательное, но и в том числе краткое выступление. Я знаю, что недавно состоялась совместная миссия ООНовских структур агентств в Туркменистане насчет укрепления внедрения целей устойчивого развития. Это знак того, что ООН готова поддержать дальше внедрение и целей, и аспираций устойчивого развития в Туркменистане. Спасибо. Our next speaker will be Ms. Amra Fetahovic, advisor to the Economic Planning Directorate in Bosnia Herzegovina. Molim lepo.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I want, first of all, to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the organization from which I'm coming and the country and the level of the implementation of the Agenda 2030 in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I work in the Directorate for Economic Planning, Council of Ministries, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we are a fairly new institution. So we are founded in 2006 as an organization to be responsible for planning development policies. But up to now, actually, since 1995, we had only one strategy, one development strategy in the country, which was called Poverty Reduction Strategy, which was a midterm strategy, and it ended in 2007. So since that time, my institution was preparing simultaneously two strategies, which was a social inclusion strategy and development strategy. But unfortunately, they were never adopted. And they're supposed to end in 2013, but so from this background that we are coming, I mean, my institution, we are really appreciating this localization of Agenda 2030. And we see a great opportunity in finally having one development paper that we all, because we are very complicated, having so many different levels of government, that we will finally be like on one track altogether. And no, but also one of the consequences of this situation is that we have so many strategies around, maybe more than 100 of them in the country that are not really connected, which reminds me of what Mr. Nikolic was saying. It was so like applicable for Bosnia, really. And now we have the project. It's a 2-year project that UN Bosnia and Herzegovina is implementing. It started last year, at the end of the last year, and it has 2 components. And my institution is a partner, the main partner with them. So one component is basically that they are supporting the government bodies in implementing Agenda 2030. So having all this framework for development, prioritization, and all these things, building the action plans. But the second component is also interesting one. It's about the engaging the private sector in the SDGs. So from one side, it's like raising awareness to them, but also from the other side is to to realize, to make them understand that on the long run, sustainable business and when they think about the social component, also an environment component, it's more sustainable on the long run. Concerning the work that has been done up to now, we are building SDG dashboards. So we are working on several tools, which is SDG dashboards, which will finally help us to find the accelerators and enablers and bottlenecks. The second one is RIA, which is Rapid Integrated Assessment, which will help us to RIA will actually do screening for 75 selected strategies, and we will try to see is there now any connections to the targets in Agenda 2030. And we also are now doing a preparation for MAPS mission, because as been said yesterday, we are the one of the users. And so now we are doing a preparatory work. We will have these major consultations, like today consultations with all levels of government, academia, non-government organizations, and so on. Thank you for your attention. I have to wrap up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fetahovic. I think the Bosnian example is a very good one. Bosnia and Herzegovina example, a very good one. Indeed, you have many different structures and layers of government there, and that easily lends itself to many different strategies, frameworks that make it very difficult to see the big picture. And yet sustainable development is all about the big picture, and what we see many times in MAPS missions, the UN, that when they come to help the governments with sustainable development at the country level, is emphasis is placed upon moving towards the creation of a single overarching development strategy with a 2030 timeline that can start to pull together and defragment some of these sectoral strategies to accelerate progress towards a whole of government approach for SDG implementation. Obviously, it's for the Bosnian Herzegovinian colleagues to decide what makes the most sense in the context of the MAPS mission, but this is one initial lesson that might be of interest to you in thinking about moving forward, and you may have already discussed this with your national and international colleagues as well. So thank you very much. We now come to our last two speakers, and before I introduce our next to last, our penultimate speaker, I would simply like to call the attention of our technical colleagues to the fact that our last speaker, Ms. Marta Diavolova, will have a short video presentation. So if we can have that ready when Ms. Diavolova is ready to present, that would be great. But before we get to that, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Dmitry Frischin, the manager of the United Nations Volunteers Sub-Regional Office for Europe and CIS. Mr. Frischin, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests. It's a big pleasure for us to be here. It's a big pleasure for me to represent the United Nations Volunteers Program, or I would say volunteer family, because as United Nations Volunteers, we are just a part and member of the big volunteer family. Let me recap the day one when we were talking about different challenges addressing sustainable development goals. We need partnerships, we need strong partnerships, we need inclusion, we need engagement. We were talking about poverty eradication. We were talking about poverty eradication, we were talking about reducing inequality. In general, we were talking about something multidimensional. And as you see, we are talking about development, we are talking about multidimensional. When we are talking about volunteerism, it's also something multidimensional, because volunteerism helps us to engage with people, to localize sustainable development goals, to domesticate them, to bring policies into the practice or the actions. As you see, it's just like inspiration in action, and we have different features. We also addressed modern technology because online volunteers, it's a part of administered by the UNV, they also contribute a lot to addressing various humanitarian and development aspects. Let me remind about the earthquake in Nepal, where online volunteers saved the lives of the family. So if we talk about the price, what is the price for human lives? And how we can talk about the people who saved these lives. We are very grateful to our partners, to UNICEF, because it's about youth engagement. Together we launch a new program for youth engagement and for young people to bring their innovations, to bring their ideas, to link communities and to link national policy. We are very grateful to our partners in Serbia, because there we are addressing disadvantaged and marginalized groups of populations, also dealing with young people. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, we support Agenda 2030 through UN volunteers deployed to particular projects. So if you see any initiatives, there are plenty of them. I really like this particular picture because, as you see, we, like volunteers, we have been always around. We existed for a long time, but now we also have our future in that, well, small hole as a picture. You see young people, children, coming with their innovations, coming with new ideas, new technologies to help us to achieve sustainable development goals. And definitely we try to do our best in order to provide these opportunities. We work everywhere. This is Expo 2017 in Kazakhstan, thanks to the personal support of the UN resident coordinator and the UN country team. A group of volunteers also participated in promotion of renewable technology and promotion of alternative solutions. We are here, we are everywhere. If you look at this picture, so we are among you. So volunteers are always with you, are always ready to support you. And thank you very much. I try to be brief and to briefly, but please contact us. Please let us know if you need support. We are not talking about funding, because volunteerism, it's not a funding, it's investment, and very, very profitable investment into the future. And if you contact us, we promise we will leave no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dmitry, for reminding us the importance of volunteerism. Obviously, in cases like the earthquake in Nepal, we really see how volunteerism really matters, both from UNDP, but also UNV, but also from people who take it upon themselves to voluntarily make a difference in other people's lives. But in much more prosaic and everyday matters as well, we benefit from volunteerism, including in this meeting, where the first draft of the meeting report is kindly being drafted by UN volunteers, for which UNDP is most grateful. So thank you in many dimensions, in many respects. We now pass the floor to Ms. Marta Diavolova, Regional Advisor for Strategic Partnerships, UNFPA. Marta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, UNDP colleagues, for having me on the panel. To be honest, it was a challenging invitation in 3 minutes to present what UNFPA is doing to address sustainable development goals. And we took a little bit of a twisted approach, so please join me to meet the expectations of the organizers. But if we take a word cloud approach to this forum, from the conceptual point, or the moment it starts conceptualizing, to the yesterday discussions and the discussions in the afternoon, which Maria presented in the morning in her opening remarks, it seems the key buzzwords would be inequalities, SDGs, promise, population dynamics and Cairo process, Beijing, human rights, reproductive rights, challenges, partnership, prosperity, and people. And as an important message comes also throughout the forum that the meeting Sustainable Development Goals will require actions on a number of fronts, including harnessing and maximizing the potential of technological innovations. For UNFPA to present its work in 3 minutes, it will be very challenging, so we took this challenge by suggesting to present to you one product which is actually a result of a partnership efforts with the private sector, bringing technological innovations, users' needs, rights, opportunities all together. The initiative I will briefly present actually amplifies the opportunities that technological change offers us through engagement with key partners and at the end address the needs of the present generation, more specifically women and girls, to meet their own needs in the area of sexual and reproductive health. Regretfully, we are still living in a world where inequalities is rampant. Some people have less opportunity to access information, and this initiative actually is aiming exactly this, to close the gap of having more information, to empower you to have choices for your decisions. Our starting point was also anchored on the fact that existing tremendous gap in knowledge leads to amplification of other types of inequalities, health-related, economically related, you name it. We also considered starting these initiatives that phones and internet play a critical role nowadays as it helps to overcome informational inequalities. So the initiative is called FLOW, which actually is Women Mobile Health Product that actually addresses women's related issues, from menstrual cycle tracker that makes very accurate predictions, and it's based on artificial intelligence. It also assists pregnancy management that provides future moms with information about changes in their bodies and the growing of the baby and the fetus. FLOW also gives women through an easy period of after birth how to deal with the challenges they face becoming young mothers. And also it is way beyond tracking what is happening with your bodies, but assists you to feel well in being a woman. So you can see now, as I speak, illustrations of the content of the FLOW. And actually, it also gives a personalized health advice, which provides women with which is provided by medical experts in 25 languages in 100 countries around the world. One key message from this presentation, I would like to emphasize strongly that this solution came from Belarus. The region has so much to offer, and I would like to applaud the countries present here for striving their dreams, actually. Without this, we wouldn't come with solutions. And this solution ensures 34 million users, primary women and girls, to have accurate information on sexual and reproductive health. It encourages health-seeking behavior and making the right informed choices, addressing myths, perceptions, with the fact that the healthcare providers are behind the information. It also provides information that can support some of the marginalized groups that don't have access to services or have certain barriers in terms of distance, disability, to reach out the right providers to have this information in their hands 24/7. Reduces stigma, myths, and particularly for young people, this is an important tool for making informed choices in terms of behavior. And provides information in multiple languages. It benefits also the market because the information there is of great wealth. What women are interested, what are the symptoms, the concerns they have, so that the market can better resonate to their needs. It also provides a research information for the healthcare providers where they need to invest more efforts to address the needs of women and girls. United Nations Population Fund, the organization I'm working for, signed an agreement in 2017 with FLO to move forward the agenda, particularly on the health application with the emphasis on sexual and reproductive health. We are very proud to be in this journey jointly with FLO, and we look forward for the results to come in the years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marta. Well, I'm afraid I haven't done such a good job keeping time as I would like, and since we started a bit late, I think we're going to have to conclude this session of the Partners Forum now. We've heard a lot of really interesting ideas. A lot of things are being done by our partners, both within the UN system and in governments, and by volunteers. People who are representing the best aspirations of sustainable development. So please join me in giving a hand to our partners and panelists in this session. And let me invite you to return to your seats while I call the next subsession. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. We've had a good start to the Partners Forum. We now move to a series of partners and speakers who represent intergovernmental agencies as well as our civil society partners. I would like to please ask now the following partners to come to the stage. Mrs. Amal Hamidallah, the director of the Gulf Foundation. Ms. Ebru Canan-Sokullu, the chair of the Department of Political Science and International Relations of Bahçeşehir University. Ms. Bahar Özay, Director of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network in Turkey. Mr. Gennady Raschupkin, Community Health Systems Coordinator of the Eurasian Coalition for Male Health. Ms. Pelin Musabay Bakı, Project Director of the Turkic Council. Mr. Yernar Zarkeshev, Advisory Board Member of the Astana Civil Service Hub, and Ms. Elif Kalan, co-founder and training expert of the Conflictus NGO. So, we have another panel. What's important here is that partnerships are important not exclusively, not only, and maybe not even most importantly, within the UN framework, but especially within and between our partners in civil society and among intergovernmental agencies as well. Just as we saw the partnerships motif manifesting itself in our discussions yesterday. Thank you very much. We want to continue with that same spirit today. So without further ado, let me pass the floor to Ms. Amal Hamidallah, Director of the Gulf Foundation. So Ms. Hamidallah, tell us, what does the Gulf Foundation do, and how can you help us to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and how can we help you to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals?
Thank you, first of all, for the organizing committee and for the UNDP to convene this groundbreaking, I would say, conference and gathering, and also opening up the space for civil society. And before asking how you can help us, just let me reflect on two experiences, and I want to be right to the point and very practical. I'm not here to give a theoretical lecture, but to give a feedback from the field in two experiences. One very relevant for the region, which is Kazakhstan, and I'm very happy to see a colleague from Kazakhstan to reflect on what I will be saying, and to remain not far from the region, neighboring country to Turkey, which is the Middle East, neighboring area, and the lesson learned. From Kazakhstan, I was involved in a project, a UNDP project. I think the project leader is somewhere here in the space. who were opening the space for the rule of law and civil society engagement with the governmental bodies. It was groundbreaking, and the lesson learned there is the opening up the space in a very, very, I would say, challenging context where a country is shifting from communist organized economy to market economy. How the UNDP, by opening up that space for the civil society and the government to engage, helped mitigate many challenges. I can't tell you that all the challenges were addressed, but opening up the space helped. To not go far from that prospect and from the region to another area not far from Turkey, neighboring country, plagued by war and conflicts and unrest, we saw how lack of transparency, inclusiveness, good governance has led to the conflict we have been facing. So there I have been involved at another level with the rule of law, but humanitarian aid and aid development, and we saw how lack of good governance had brought up in a very complex situation. So how you can help us? The Gulf Foundation, learning from those experiences, we built a network of civil society actors trying to highlight the importance of engaging governmental bodies, local societies, and I tried to duplicate the lesson learned in Central Asia, South-South, and to foster that dialogue, whether we are working with humanitarian actors or aid development agencies. We were always highlighting the need to contextualize and localize aid. And we cannot just come and say we will address the thematic issue of zero hunger, gender equality, without broadening up the approach involving local society, local community, making a market assessment, how to involve the private sector, how to address unemployment, because we are there to address the root cause of conflict, the root cause of migration, and unfortunately it's not happening sufficiently. And I hope, and for me being here was a very important, I would say, gathering, because there are many lessons to be learned in terms of engagement and mutual support. So hoping that we will learn more and focusing on the good governance aspect. And the good governance aspect is not only about addressing the judiciary, accountability, but also transparency, inclusiveness, and that all voices matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much for pointing out a number of really critical issues. One is that sustainable development is necessary for many reasons. One is if we don't have it, we're much more likely to have conflict, tragedy, and much more serious problems than unsustainable development, one might say. And thank you also for calling attention to the links between governance, civil society, and conflict prevention, which is in fact a theme we'll be returning to later on today when we have our dedicated thematic session on peace and governance together. So you've called our attention to many important issues, which both were in the program yesterday and will resurface again today. So thank you very much, and also thank you for being very brief in your remarks. Our next speaker will be Ms. Ebru Canan-Sokullu, the chair of the Department of Political Science and International Relations of Bahçeşehir University. The floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. I also thank all the organizers for inviting me and for my 4 students that were here yesterday. They had extended this invitation to bring some students who are active and, they're in university education. So it was actually very impressive yesterday. So I must actually first explain this. Well, I'm coming from a university sector, and I myself truly believe in the fact that, sustainable development that we've been talking since yesterday very intensively is actually a function of education of human capital, right? So if it is a function of financial capital is definitely a function, mathematically speaking, a function of, training of the human capital. So I myself am a political scientist, so I've been working for a long time on political science related matters, but also at the same time teaching the young individuals, first to think responsibly about their future, not only personal future, but also the future of the globe, the local spaces that they're living in. And as a part of our job, it is the responsibility of the universities to educate, to train young people, to train people who are actually volunteer to learn more about good governance, good civic awareness, critical thinking, problem solving, so forth and so on. And it is actually quite essential, first of course, to embed this notion in the minds of young people who are actually a very difficult generation for the time being. They don't have any direction. They're actually quite involved in this technology, so they're not aware of the environment that they're living in. And without this awareness and without the care for the environment that they're living and for the problems that they're going to, or their previous generations or next generations are going to face with, it's very impossible, I believe, that, to be able to achieve the SDG, 2030, or maybe in the future 50s or whatsoever. So it is actually our part to give this notion to the young people. When I was at the university, the first thing that I learned was that university was not a place which gives us vocational training. University is something that actually, teaches us with other intellectual notions, right? So this is actually the first thing that I also try to impose upon my students, right? So therefore, the university sector, the tertiary education sector is therefore quite essential, and it is actually, I think, an engine. It's a social engine of, educating people. I'm not saying educating, I'm underlining that it's not educating only young people. Maybe in the second round, we'll be talking more about specific projects. What I, in my university career, academic career, carried out certain projects that actually had a quite, in my opinion, again, quite an essential impact on creating that awareness, the public good, the global public good. I don't want to speak too much and take my colleagues' time, but a couple of things that we should actually, that we have here the governmental representatives, people from IGOs, NGOs. So first thing that we should be aware, and we are I'm very glad about that, are aware of is the fact that, it is a global responsibility to take care about, all these local problems. And I think one important tool, as Nelson Mandela had once shared, is education. And I quote here, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And we're all talking about changing, the world for the better, right? And before I stop, I would like to remind everybody here in this room one of the principles adopted in Rio in 1992 from the Earth Charter. It says Earth is our home and we have to live all together as a part of a greater community. And for this reason, I believe the university education and the government should adopt this view. Education of and for tolerance. This is very essential. We're living in a world which is actually culturally quite diverse, and we are more aware of this diversity every day. It's actually in our hands reach, right? So education of cultural diversity, again, education of the universal values, which we tend to forget, right? And a universal development for the human development. These are, I think, quite essential, and this should be adopted by the university education and by the governments who perceive the university as an engine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for raising the importance of universities, education, young people, investments in human capital. One of the reasons that we as UNDP are so fortunate to be working here in Istanbul is there are so many great universities here, and we have benefited so much from the graduates of Istanbul universities and others from Ankara as well in Turkey, who are really, in some respects, the lifeblood of UNDP's work in our regional office here in Istanbul. Thank you also for raising the issue of sustainable development education and ways in which we can bring the analytical dimensions and the pedagogical dimensions of sustainability to education systems, especially at the university level. This is something that we're also working with and could perhaps explore with your institution, ways in which we could do this a little bit better together, which in fact leads us very nicely to our next speaker, Ms. Bahar Özay, the director of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network in Turkey, who is also located at one of Istanbul's great university, Boğaziçi University, who will tell us a little bit about what SDSN is doing, but also has a very short but inspirational video to show us. So, Bahar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Ben, you just promised and you did your promise. And I thank you very much for including us, for voicing the civil society, academia, justice pillars, helping government. So, dear UNDP family, dear colleagues, dear friends, good morning. I'm really very happy to be here and very excited. I would like that Aslı plays, first of all, the Earth Mother Speaks. And why are we here right now? Why do we have to take action? Let's see, and then I will briefly mention what is UNSDSN, United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Aslı?
Some call me nature. Others call me Mother Nature. I've been here for over 4.5 billion years. 22,500 times longer than you. I don't really need people, but people need me. Yes, your future depends on me. When I thrive, you thrive. When I falter, you falter. Or worse. But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater than you, and I have starved species greater than you. My oceans, my soil, my flowing streams, my forests, they all can take you or leave you. How you choose to live each day, whether you regard or disregard me, doesn't really matter to me. One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve. Are you?
I think we need to protect our common home. That's why we are here today. That's why we're talking about the SDGs. And we are the decision makers, government, civil society, academia, just contributing with the very important examples, diagnostics, theories to take action right now for our future. Are we ready to evolve? Are we ready to take action? Are we ready to just go out our comfort zone? This is the big problem. If we need to protect our common home, if we don't have any other B planet, we have to take action. That's why there is UNSDSN, United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network. This is an initiative led by former General Secretary, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, and this initiative is led by Columbia University Earth Institute Director, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, and we are the Turkish chapter. And very simply, we try to mobilize scientific and technical expertise from academia, civil society, and the private sector for sustainable solutions-oriented problems and for sustainable development. We as my professor also underlined, we provide online educations through our SDG Academy. And we are just following very closely all the meetings, all the developments in the sustainable development world. STSN Turkey is led by Professor Adaman, who contributed with 2 big concepts yesterday. And we need to think about that. And this is the contribution again to our governments, to the international community, think about the growth and also commoning. Otherwise, our resources are scarce and we have to really use them very carefully. We are a significant knowledge brokerage house with a big portfolio from all over the world, and we ensure the information flow among the stakeholders on the recent developments on SDGs and global SDG agenda. Yesterday, again, we talked about the youth, and I would like to end my presentation with a campaign that our youth team does. This is Know Your Goal campaign. Perhaps it's a really important tool for us for raising awareness. We have a Turkish youth team, and this youth coordinators, member of our universities, we work together to raise awareness on SDGs. They are really working as SDG ambassadors, and they are ready to collaborate with UNV to raise awareness in the high schools, even in the primary schools. In these days, we are preparing for a conference on plastics. We're sharing the idea that we have to take action, and all in action for a sustainable plastic industry in Turkey. And we're just inviting all the partners. How can we have a smart, innovative, sustainable plastic industry on the Oceans Days? These are some of the activities that we are doing. And in the second part, if you are interested, I would like to show this Know Your Goal campaigns. I thank you very much for the opportunity.
I think sustainable development goals are very important because they are showing us a path.
Never before have we decided to implement something on such a grand scale.
The diversity of the goals captures every single need that should be addressed.
සහ ලෝකයේ සිටින සෑම මිනිසෙකුටම එක සමානව සම්පත් බෙදීම අවශ්‍යයි.
I believe it is very important to have the SDGs because they allow for tangible, specific goals that can help measure achievements.
Building institutions at a local, national and global level
in order to improve people's lives worldwide and hopefully keep it that way.
Right now, time is of the essence.
To remember that we have only one planet. That's what the SDGs are about. They link all the challenges we are facing and they show how interdependent they are.
İnanıyorum ki birlik olursak bütün sorunların üstesinden geleceğiz.
هي ما كلام على ورق بس، الأهداف دي موجودة عشان أنت تعرف أهدافك، عشان تهتم بالتنمية وعشان تركز على إنها تكون مستدامة لك ولغيرك وللأجيال.
It is really a good starting point for us to take action. I know we have to work quite a bit more.
The race is on to make sure that everyone knows what they are, why they're important, and what they can do to support them.
The reason why it's so important is that the 17 SDGs together offer a unique opportunity this year to embark on a development path that will lead us to a sustainable future.
We can end extreme poverty. We can assure health care for all. We can stop this terrible risk of climate change. You can't think of a more exciting agenda.
The Sustainable Development Goals. These are your goals, your future, your livelihoods.
Know your goals.
Know your goals.
Know your goals!
Thank you, Bahar. That's very inspirational. And it reminds us that really there are some, for lack of a better term, existential issues at stake. We haven't maybe talked enough about gender in these 2 days. gender issues in so many of the countries are extremely important, but they're often conflated with, or there may be a tendency to conflate gender issues with women's empowerment and women in development issues. And indeed, there are issues of gender gaps that disfavor women if we look at employment, if we look at wages, if we look at such terrible problems as violence against women. But there are some gender issues which really are about men, especially in this region. And we see this when we look at mortality data for many countries. In general, women live longer than men all over the world, but that gap between life expectancy for women and men tends to be especially large, and indeed some of the largest gaps in the world are found in a number of countries in this region. And this has to do in a lot of ways with expectations, with lifestyle choices that men make that manifest themselves in health issues and public health, but also private lifestyle concerns. And so it's in this respect that I'm especially glad that Mr. Gennady Chupkin from the Eurasian Coalition on Male Health can join us, because it reminds us that gender is important, and it's important for men as well as women in ways that may not always be obvious and apparent to all of us. Mr. Raschupkin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say that this is a huge honor for me to talk to such an experienced and influential auditorium as you are. And I would like to spend these 3 to 5 minutes to talk about exclusion and marginalization, because exclusion and marginalization is one of the hugest obstacles on the way to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. Namely, I would like to talk about such marginalized and excluded in a big extent from social life groups as lesbians, gay men, bisexual, transgender people. But everything I would say is also applicable to other marginalized groups such as drug users, sex workers, working migrants, and many others. How many of them are living near us? On average, in the region, from 6 to 10 millions of LGBT people. 10 millions is a population of Republic of Belarus. Do you wanna to get such a huge market? But this market, for the moment, is excluded in big extent from policy making, economy development, and development in general. There are almost 1 or even more millions of drug users, and there are from 20 to 50 thousands of sex workers. So we're talking about quite a huge number of people who are literally excluded from active social life in our countries. Exclusion, just to give, I just want to try to describe what exclusion is. Exclusion is a kind of cold civil war when we are trying to compete with each other and we are trying to remake our neighbors, remake them to make them similar to us and try to urge them to act as we are acting. So I want to underline this. This is a type of cold civil war. And the same as with any other civil wars, no one will win if we will not come up with some more peaceful solutions. And the Sustainable Development Goals is quite a good framework to stop this war and to reorient our attention, all of us, attention of so-called normal people and all marginalized groups to the equally important and equally beneficial targets, such as health, education, economical growth, family sustainability, and so on. What we are trying as ECOM and other marginalized community networks in the region of Eastern Europe and Central Asia, what we're trying to do to stop this civil war and try normal, peaceful life. First of all, we're trying to develop spaces and platforms for cooperation between governmental experts and activists from community members. For instance, it's already 2 years as we developed a so-called RACC. It's a regional expert group on quality of data, and this group contains representatives from gay men and other MSM community organizations and representatives from ministers of health, and they work together to ensure the quality of data they use to plan HIV-targeted interventions. I'll stop with examples because they are more or less the same. They use more or less the same algorithm of work. We're trying to put people together and let them to work to benefit each other. And the last thing I would like to underline, it was mentioned already several times here about funding, billions, millions, and other many zero figures. I would suggest you to see on the other side of money and other side of funding, which calls investment. When we provide money, for instance, from government to community organizations, we build bridges for further cooperation. Money is not, provision of money is not just spending. It is also one of the important step for joint work for cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rastchupkin, for reminding us of the importance of leave no one behind, what that really means. When we leave people behind, we disinvest in ourselves and in our future. It's not only a question of human rights for individuals, it's a question of our future as societies, countries, as a planet. I would add that one vulnerable or sometimes marginalized group that you didn't mention, but one that many UN agencies work with are Roma and Egyptians, especially in Eastern and Southeastern Europe. And next week, a number of United Nations organizations will be in Brussels working with the European Commission on Roma Week, and also presenting the results from a new survey that's just been completed of Roma households in Southeastern Europe that shows the true face in terms of poverty, health, education, and employment challenges for a group of people that oftentimes is forgotten about or ignored, and yet is one of the most rapidly growing demographic groups in Eastern and Southeastern Europe as well. So it's an issue that is central to what the United Nations agenda is, goes to health, employment, education, and many other concerns as well. So thank you once again for bringing this to our attention. Our next speaker is Pelin Musabay-Baki, Project Director from the Turkey Council. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ben. We are extremely pleased to take part in this partnership forum, and we believe that it has already reached its targets because it has generated a lot of innovative ideas. And together with yesterday's discussions, it reminded us the importance of partnership once again, because as we all know, together we are stronger. Saying that, I would like to mention about what the Turkey Council is doing on this, on the achievement of the SDGs. Turkey Council, the full name is Cooperation Council of Turkic-Speaking States. It's an intergovernmental international organization with a regional focus, and it is certainly a responsible actor with an inclusive and comprehensive approach. We are established in 2009. We have 4 member states, namely Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. And we are based in Istanbul, luckily. It eases our cooperation with Istanbul Regional Hub for sure, and other United Nations specialized agencies located in Istanbul. And we are operating in a very wide range of areas, from economy, education, tourism, transportation, youth and sports, and so on. So there are 14 different areas that we are operating. And in each and every area of cooperation, we are trying to boost the awareness on the necessity for the achievement of the SDGs. And while doing so, we look at the human and institutional capacity building, experience sharing, and good practices, ideas at the center of our working mechanism. And we are trying to come up with home-ground solutions to the development challenges, because we believe that this is very important. And we do all these activities in cooperation with private sector, academia, and of course, international community, as we do with UNDP. With UNDP, we have a MOU signed in 2016, and there are 4 main areas that we determined: ICT, renewable energy, tourism, and preventing and countering violent extremism. Our first joint event was about the role of ICT for development, and it was a quite successful event with the participation of 150 high-level experts from different 15 countries. And then we organized another event with United Nations Alliance of Civilizations with the valuable partnership of UNDP and United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, with which we have also another MOU. So during this event, we promoted SDGs for sure, and also we touched upon the role of youth in countering and preventing violent extremism, which is an important topic that we looked into it in a detailed way. And initiating jointly an online academy with the UNDP is on our agenda. And last year we hosted a solution forum in the framework of the Global South-South Development Expo, hosted by Turkey in November in Antalya. And over there, we focused on the transformative projects for good practices in the implementation of the SDGs. And there were 2 important, actually, projects that should be raised. One, Afshan service, which from Azerbaijan, which is an e-government model. And the other one is the Tazakom from Kyrgyzstan that Madame Sultanoğlu, the Assistant Secretary General, mentioned at her opening remarks. So these projects, they have the innovative elements and technology elements, and that's why they are very important. And they serve certainly to the benefit of citizens, people. So this is our response to the question raised at the beginning of the event as well. One last thing, I just want to conclude my remarks with this. We prepared a report with United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, and this is about Turkey Council contributions to the South-South Cooperation. And in the report, this is a report like a summary of what we are doing and the assessment of our activities for the achievement of the SDGs. So in this report, when we zoom in, there is one example. This is the Tourism Vocational Training Program. And this is related to our project about improving and revitalization of the tourism along the Silk Road. Our project name is Modern Silk Road Joint Tour Package Project. And with one tour, actually, now the tourists can travel around our countries to become a modern Marco Polo. So, and this is on the Sky Life magazine in its April issue, and you can read it on the way back to your countries if you fly with Turkish Airlines. So, in the preparation phase of this project, we actually initiated another joint project and facilitated the trainings of tourism employees of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Azerbaijan by the by the experts of Ministry of Culture and Tourism of Turkey. So far, 1 tourism employees from the private and public sectors they are trained, and I am proud to say that half of the trainees they are women. And with this note, this project is contributing to the SDGs number 4, 5, and 8 directly. So we would like to actually increase the number of this kind of projects in cooperation with our partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, the Turkic Council is an organization that has both governmental and civil society dimensions. Another such organization is the Astana Civil Service Hub, which is both an NGO civil society organization and benefits from the roots that come from that sector, but is also very much a focus of governmental cooperation and especially support from the government of Kazakhstan for improving the quality of governance in that region. So we're very pleased to have Mr. Yenar Zarkeshev here from the advisory board of the Astana Civil Service Hub. Mr. Zarkeshev, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ben. I would like to thank the Istanbul Regional Hub and the other organizers for the invitation. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to address this panel on behalf of the Astana Civil Service Hub Advisory Board, which is a multilateral platform initiated by the government of Kazakhstan and UNDP for sharing civil service and governance solutions, where now already 40 countries participate, the geography of which stretches from Mongolia to Estonia, from Indonesia to Tajikistan, with Uzbekistan and Montenegro being the most recent ones to join. So the mission of the hub is to assist the governments of these countries in building HR and institutional capacities of the public sector by fostering partnerships, championing peer learning and capacity building, and launching research and knowledge sharing projects. But I have another hat, wearing another hat today, which is the Center for Strategic Initiatives, which is a management consulting firm in Kazakhstan. I'll talk about it a bit later. So taking into consideration the short time of this session, I'll go directly to the essence, and I want to talk about what partnership means in our region. Development dialogue is at the core of the business of the Astana Hub, which brings together various players, including government agencies, civil society, and the private sector, to really have a dialogue, to really collaborate on tackling common challenges. So, as I mentioned, I'm managing the Center for Strategic Initiatives, and Astana Hub creates opportunities for private firms like ours to directly engage with central and local governments and transform their operations, transform their strategies, so that we can help them do more with less in a sustainable manner. For instance, we at CSI transformed the organizational model of the capital city of Astana, Kazakhstan, developed long-term strategies for various state-owned enterprises. So the Astana Hub always looks for innovative solutions. Through its innovative solutions scheme, This year they are running the second round to governance issues and scales them up with the good practices, not only the best practices of Western economies, but also good practices of emerging economies as well. So this is a real partnership based on not on monologue but on dialogue. So against the backdrop of global development agenda, we see that there are no concerted efforts of governments to implement SDGs, and it's normal because governments have their own short-term and mid-term priorities. So if we really want to develop sustainable partnerships, we should really take into account the context, the uniqueness of every partner. Thus, our work must be really based on inclusive dialogue. So that's something that Astana Hub has been successful in doing so, because it's a demand-driven initiative. So every project, every dialogue it launches is demanded by the participating countries. Today's increasingly volatile world, many things, many trends really giving rise to many challenges to the public sector. So one of them is disruptive technologies that creates both opportunities for the public sector, but also really changes the nature of the government-citizen relations. Such challenges require reassessing the public service, whether our governments at the localities are really ready. So importantly, there is an inherent conflict between politicians who are more focused on quick wins and the longer-term interests of society that makes the role of public service, especially professional public service, particularly pronounced. So here I would like to emphasize the role of properly insulated from political interference and professional civil servants who can really speak truth to power and safeguard people's long-term interests, which appears to be a model that many countries strive for. Our region is very diverse, so I emphasize the role of civil servants because they define the quality of public administration, which is in its turn at the core of Goal 16, which is all about strong institutions. So my big questions that we were encouraged to raise yesterday is whether our civil service at the localities are ready, whether they have the right capacity to deliver, do they possess the right skills to be responsive and proactive in to really meet the challenges, whether they are ready to facilitate dialogues like this. And another question is how can the UNDP incentivize the governments to take longer-term view and really drive the sustainable development? And lastly, but not least, how to incentivize the profit-driven private sector firms with strong accumulated expertise to also contribute to sustainable development. So as a response, Astana Civil Service Hub has been launching different initiatives. One of them is the Peer Learning Alliance on e-governance that my colleague was already mentioning, Estonia being a regional good practice, which is truly a South-South cooperation. The first Peer Alliance of Astana Hub was on one-stop shops with Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Georgia being the champions of good regional practices. So we really need to reach out to emerging economies whether there are good practices, because I always argue that emerging economies can learn from each other actually better, much deeper than from the Western developed countries where they have different models of operations. So I would like to really encourage everyone to really join the Astana Hub, but also enable the private sector firms like consulting firms to work together to achieve a sustained future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Increasingly, we find that services, especially analytical services and partnership services, are delivered not only by institutions, but by networks of institutions. And networks represent the collective ability of their partners to do more together than they can individually or even as groups of individual institutions. And we see this in the Astana Hub as well. So I would also second the invitation to use the Astana Hub as a network to connect with for what your institutions may be doing, not only in Central Asia, but in other places that the Astana Hub is increasingly active as well. So thank you very much. Well, as has been mentioned, this is the 4th year that we've now done the Istanbul Development Dialogues, and now that we've been doing this so long, we have the opportunity to welcome back some speakers, participants from previous years. And one of these is Elif Kalan, who is the co-founder and training expert of Conflictus, NGO, who actually spoke at the Istanbul Development Dialogues, participated last year. So Elif, welcome back. The floor is yours. Briefly, what can you share with us this year?
Thank you, Ben. It's a pleasure to be here again. Yeah, I was on this stage last year as well. The focus was more on the inclusion and the capacity building of young people in terms of social cohesion and social mediation that we have been still doing with Syrian and Turkish young people in Antep, Urfa, and Ankara and Istanbul. So I represent here Conflictus. We are not an NGO actually, but we call ourselves a social enterprise that we mainly work on the social issues regarding conflict analysis and conflict resolution as well as peace building. And our main maybe partners, pioneers are young people as well as children and women's groups. So we also work with, and this is very crucial for us, business sectors, public sectors, international and very local organizations, not just NGOs, but platforms, solidarity groups, and local assemblies as well. So, I mean, within all the discussions, and I have been in this kind of field, like sustainable development, development issues, local developments, since 2005 maybe, and I saw the MDGs, I could say, and now from MDGs to SDGs, we have been in the process again. And we very frequently visit the field, not just field of Turkey, but field in the region, and we have many participants from all over the region. So what we can see actually what we can see that I will talk about, we can see, and I would like to address the question actually about getting the governance rights. So, but this right, what does it mean rights? I'm not going to detail about this, but so how can we ensure that governance narratives broaden the focus of sustainable development policies, as well as providing technical support for their implementation? Well, this is a huge thing. We have like how many years in the F 12? So still, I don't know, but three things came to my mind, so I will just talk all about this. Although the SDGs are supposedly and very hopefully discussed by the world population, people of the world, on the approach of right-based, but we are not really focusing on the right-based approaches when we are planning our projects, our processes, and we somehow shift our focus. And I think those goals are the needs, but these are our rights as the world's citizens. So we should really focus on this. And so this approach, these are our rights, not just local goals, someone's goals, this is our goals, but this is our rights. So we should really focus on this. And really many of the panelists already mentioned that really localize all these rights. So that's why the importance of local population, young people, women's groups, children, municipalities, and refugees. Right now in Turkey we have 3.5 million refugees registered under the protection. So people of the cities should really take up their rights and really work on them. So to do this, actually, we have to have legal frameworks based on local, ruled by or governed by the local authorities, which we can do this, I believe, because local actions can be done more and more easily, I would say. And because one of the things that I've been thinking about from the beginning of these SDGs, 1 minute, that these are voluntary goals. So these are not conventions that are binding the member states of the United Nations. So these are voluntary, and how voluntary we are, I mean, we should really discuss about that. And the last thing that we should also remember that as people, we should develop our capacities, and we should, by doing this, we should change our perspectives, change our attitudes, change our behaviors so that the policies and the implementation can be changed than different from the previous processes. So that's how we may bring some kind of a justice, and in line with justice, together with justice, peace, somehow for our neighborhoods, not to our world, but for our neighborhoods and maybe cities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, personally, I found these presentations so interesting that I forgot that I was supposed to be also conducting a moderated discussion, but maybe it's just as well as the speakers were able to speak directly from what they had prepared, and we managed to catch up a little bit on the time. But that having been said, we now come perhaps to the most interesting and yet unexplored part of the Partners Forum, the open mic session. 3 partners have indicated a desire to come up from the floor and speak from the podium here to briefly introduce their organizations. And I would like now to ask these 3 individuals to do this, keeping in mind that you should be brief, especially since you're standing in the way of a coffee break. And if you speak too long, you might get run over. No, seriously. We're very glad that you are also willing to take the floor to express and describe what you're doing, and we're glad to give you the opportunity. So I would like now to ask the following individuals to come to the front of the room. First, Mr. Görkem Gümeç from Yeşil East, Professor Refika Bakolu, the Director of the International Sustainability Center at Marmara University, and Mr. Ayman Nabhani of the organization Istanbul and I. Please, Mr. Gümeç, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity first. And, we are Yeşil East. I'm the project coordinator of Yeşil East. And we are also a social enterprise like yourself. The Yeşil East background is actually comes from a mother's need to find organic and sustainable products in Turkey, but it was really hard in 2010. So what happened was she created an online list. Since the name Yeşil List, Green List, that's where it comes from. And we still continue to do that right now, but we also evolved during those times since in 2010 also there was not so many the opportunity to understand and know about organic and sustainability. So now we also created a website that gives news, and there's more than 3,500 articles about sustainability and sustainable living at yeşilist.com, and we have more than 150,000 followers now. And but we also continue to help the businesses to explain themselves. We help them to create projects with them and promote their products. We also are part of a SDSN and SDSN Youth. So we go to high schools and universities to talk about SDSN goals and the global changes about climate change. And the best part was we built a project called Students Go Green, which was also selected by UN Green Citizen and rewarded as a Green Citizen project. And it was the first inter-campus competition between universities, and there was really good projects about this. I wish you would check it. And I think what we are like in basically is we just wanted to create a dialogue between companies and students and the followers, and we are just a speaker for it. And thank you very much again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gümeç. Our next speaker to the open mic is Professor Refika Bakolu, the Director of the International Sustainability Center of Marmara University. Professor Bakolu, what does the International Sustainability Center of Marmara University do, and how can we work together?
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, first of all. It is a dream opportunity for us. We have been working hard, not for this presentation, actually, I didn't know that one, but as a center, we have been working hard. I will talk about my center, and I will talk about a little bit, starting from my story, and then joining, then afterwards, I will be primarily talking about the center. I actually, my story started in 2004 with sustainability awareness and then works and studies. So afterwards, I have done so many projects like international projects, with Germans, and all of them are, as you can see, related with businesses and empowerment, ethics issues, and national projects as well, some related with businesses. And I also design a competition among students. These are all just before the center started. So, and then, first of all, I turned our quality management master program into sustainable growth and quality management program 6 years ago, and then 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, we opened ICS, International Center of Sustainability, and this is since then we have been doing some activities. But before that, before I have to explain this, I like to tell you that we have been working on a project, business for businesses, how we can actually turn businesses into sustainable businesses and connect their strategies with sustainability and their sources. And so this is why we created a model, business model. Yeah, and we use this in a strategy work we did last year, finished last year. So we, in a large scale, we tested this model, business model that works. Okay, we can, since I have limited time, maybe we can step into the, as we can definitely create better world for us. And in the meantime, can they change the slides, please? Yeah. We believe that there is, if we change our paradigm mindset, we can change everything. We can change, to be able to meet with the GDSs, we need mind shift in Turkey, in everywhere actually, so in businesses. So let me, since I have only one remark to make, so I like to show you the center, which we have really. If you look at the board of the center, we have diversified team, engineers, social scientists from different departments. So, and all of them are pretty much internationally active people. So we started as international center. So this is international center, but with the okay. Sorry. We started as international center, but now we are. Sorry, excuse me. I wanna. Okay, let's keep it there. We started as international center, but for 2 years, we invested in local networks of sustainability in Turkey, primarily, especially academics and businesses. So, and NGOs, some NGOs. First international conference, there were some international people, but we gathered all the people. And second one was quite boutique international conference, because we wanted to have all these people get into the same paradigm that we have.
Please excuse me, but can you conclude? We have more speakers.
Yeah, okay.
To come,
And
so I apologize.
so we have done even expressive art to make all the knowledge into their action. And when I like to say is that we have capability of doing most of the GDS. We have people. Marmara is really big university because of the strategy. We have a big network and national network as well. We have only goals 11, 14, and 16. Maybe is not in our competence, but the rest of them we are happy to cooperation. To the cooperation. Thank you. Sorry about this. Thank you.
And our last speaker at the open mic is Mr. Ayman Nabhani from the organization Istanbul and I. Mr. Nabhani, welcome.
Thanks everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to represent Istanbul and I. I strongly believe that what we do in this community in Istanbul is a lot important than people perceive it to be. And I think it's like we're taking a huge part in the development that we have been talking about since yesterday in this dialogue. So let me give you a brief introduction about Istanbul and I. We're a youth volunteering-based community dedicated to social impact and help displaced and disadvantaged people that come from different backgrounds. We aim to collectively raise the awareness about the problems that they are having and about the restrict ways into the education system that they cannot actually receive, even though that they seek for it. So we organize educational clubs like English-speaking clubs, Turkish-speaking clubs, and we try to help them speak different languages. We arranged this Amman shelter for LGBT community. We also arranged a shelter for refugees coming from Syria, coming from Yemen, Iran, and some Afghanis as well. The interesting thing about this is that we're doing it out of our own interest, and we're not getting funding from anywhere yet. We are basically doing this fundraising kind of events out of stand-up comedies and live music in order to cover our own expenses. But as we have been trying to reach local non-profit organizations and international organizations here in Turkey, we have been like a lot restricted into believing in what we want to do and how much is it important to participate, or at least like the UNDP should be supporting us somehow. Not by donating, but by like delivering our message, by taking it into international levels. And I hope that you check us like in the website, istanbulanai.org, and you'll find out more about the project that we conclude. And I wanted to show you guys a video, but it was too late, but I hope you got my message. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nabhani. I think your presentation is perhaps the best conclusion to the Partners Forum imaginable. Short, succinct, and it reminds us why we're all here and why partnerships are so important. And maybe also it reminds us why the United Nations is important, because we're not only a bureaucracy, we're not only an intergovernmental organization, we're a forum, a platform for bringing people together who want to make a difference. And that's what sustainable development is all about. That's what the Sustainable Development Goals are all about. And that's what ultimately the Istanbul Development Dialogues are about as well. So on that note, apologies as the moderator for not keeping quite as well to the program as perhaps I should. But I think we have had very rich discussions, very rich presentations. The breadth and scope and the potential of the partners that are here today, to me, is really moving and strong. And I hope that some of you feel the same way as well. And I think, without further ado, we can move now right to the coffee break. If there's any housekeeping things, we can pick them up after the coffee break. We're a bit behind schedule, but let's reconvene here at 20 after 12. And please, let's continue these partnership discussions at the coffee break and afterwards as well. So thank you very much. Çok teşekkür ederim.